The city was waking up when the CEO sat by his window staring at the world below. Cars moved like ants. People rushed to work and everything seemed so busy, so distant. He had everything money could buy: luxury, respect, and power. Yet something felt missing. People smiled at him only when they needed something. No one ever looked at him as a person, just as a wallet. He had learned to trust numbers, not faces. One morning, he overheard two of his top executives joking in the hallway. They spoke about how easy it was to impress him by pretending to care. Their laughter stayed in his mind all day. That was when a strange idea came to him. A test. Not a business test, but one about people. He wanted to see who among the women around him could stay real when money wasn't a limit. He shared his plan with his assistant, who had worked for him for years. She looked at him with surprise when he said he wanted to give his black card to 4 women and see what each of them would do. "You want to just hand them the card?" she asked, almost laughing. He nodded. "Yes. Tell them it's a gift. No rules, no limits, just see what they buy." The assistant hesitated. She wasn't sure if it was right, but she knew her boss well. When he made up his mind, no one could stop him. So she started making a list. There was the marketing manager, smart, confident, and always dressed in expensive clothes. Then the model who often attended company parties and knew how to charm everyone in the room. The third was a popular influencer who had once collaborated with the company on a campaign. And the fourth, a quiet woman who worked as a part-time cleaner in their building, a single mom who always kept to herself. The CEO didn't know much about her. He had seen her once or twice, carrying cleaning supplies, never complaining, always polite. Her name came up only because the assistant had suggested her. "She's not like the others," the assistant said softly. "She works 2 jobs to take care of her son. Maybe she deserves to be tested too." The CEO agreed. Something about the idea intrigued him. So the next day, he arranged to meet all 4 women, one by one. He invited them to his office, pretending it was for a new project. The first woman walked in confidently, her perfume filling the air. She smiled widely when he handed her the black card. "Buy whatever you truly need," he said. She almost gasped, but quickly composed herself. "Are you serious?" He nodded, keeping his face unreadable. She left the room with a sparkle in her eyes. The second woman came next, businesslike and proud. When he gave her the card, she thanked him politely, but he could see the excitement in her face. She already seemed to be planning what to buy. The third, the influencer, couldn't stop smiling. She even took a quick photo of the card, saying she just wanted to remember the moment. He didn't stop her. He wanted to see what she would do with that freedom. Then came the fourth woman, the single mom. She stood by the door, nervous, unsure why she had been called. Her clothes were plain, her hands rough from work, and her eyes tired but kind. The CEO handed her the card, just like the others. "Buy what you need," he said calmly. She looked at the card, then at him, confused. "I don't understand," she said softly. "It's simple," he replied. "You can buy whatever you truly need, that's all." She hesitated for a long time. Her fingers trembled as she held the card. "Are you sure this isn't a mistake?" she asked. "I don't think I'm supposed to have something like this." The CEO looked at her closely. There was no greed in her voice, no excitement, just confusion and honesty. "No mistake," he said firmly. "Use it however you want." She nodded, slowly, and left, still unsure why someone like him would give her such a thing. Later that evening, the assistant asked, "Do you really think this will show who they are?" The CEO leaned back in his chair. "Money always shows who people are. Some hide behind manners, some behind kindness, but give them freedom, and you see the truth." The assistant wasn't sure she agreed, but she stayed silent. Deep down, she hoped the quiet woman would surprise him. There was something about her that felt different. The next morning, the CEO started receiving updates. The first woman had gone straight to a designer store. She spent thousands on jewelry, clothes, and perfumes within hours. The second had bought a luxury car and new furniture for her apartment. The influencer had posted a picture of the card on social media with a caption, "When your favorite CEO knows your worth." It went viral in minutes. He wasn't shocked. He had expected this. Each woman acted exactly how he thought they would, except the last one. There were no updates about her. The assistant said she hadn't used the card yet. 2 days passed. Still nothing. Curiosity got the better of him. "Track her purchases," he said quietly. The assistant nodded, unsure if it was right, but did as told. That evening, she walked into his office holding a paper. "She finally used it," she said. He looked up from his work. "Where?" "A grocery store," the assistant said. "But that's not all. She paid for groceries for several families. Then she went to the children's hospital and cleared some medical bills. There's no record of her buying anything for herself." The CEO leaned back, silent for a moment. "Nothing?" "Nothing personal," the assistant replied. "Just food, medicine, and donations. She didn't even keep the card afterward. She left it at the hospital reception." He didn't speak. For the first time in years, he felt something break through his calm mask. This wasn't what he expected. She hadn't used the chance to escape her struggles or buy comfort. Instead, she helped others. People she didn't even know. The next morning, he watched her from his office window as she mopped the floors. She worked quietly as if nothing unusual had happened. The black card was just another passing thing for her. She didn't even look up to see if anyone was watching. That moment stayed with him. While the other 3 women were showing off what they bought, this one continued her simple life as if nothing had changed. The CEO realized he had misjudged what really mattered in people. He had believed money could reveal greed, but it had also revealed kindness he hadn't expected. That evening, he called his assistant. "Invite her to my office tomorrow," he said. The assistant nodded but couldn't help asking, "What are you planning to do?" He gave a faint smile. "Maybe it's time I learn something from her." Outside, the city lights glowed through the night, reflecting on the glass of his tall building. The CEO sat in silence, thinking about the 4 women and how money had changed each of them. But his thoughts kept returning to the single mom, the one who hadn't changed at all. For the first time in a long while, he felt respect not for wealth, but for honesty. And without realizing it, the test he thought would expose others had started to change him instead. The next morning, the single mom woke up early, just like any other day. Her son was still asleep, wrapped in a blanket that had seen better days. She quietly prepared breakfast, thinking about what had happened with the black card. The idea of spending so much money on herself made her uneasy. She had never been the type to chase luxuries. Life had taught her that true happiness didn't come from things, but from little acts of care and love. After sending her son off to school, she decided to visit the local market. She thought about how many families struggled just to put food on the table. Her hands shook slightly as she counted her small savings, realizing that the black card in her pocket could change more than just her life. It could help others in ways she had never imagined possible. At the market, she bought supplies for 2 families she knew were having a hard month. Fresh vegetables, rice, milk, and some fruits filled the baskets. She made sure to include small treats for children, something they wouldn't usually get. The vendors smiled at her, unaware that the payment came from a credit card she wasn't supposed to use in the first place. She left quietly, wishing only that these families would feel a little lighter, even if just for a day. Her next stop was the children's hospital, the place where her son had once been treated for a minor illness. Memories flooded back, the worried nights, the endless forms, the small room that felt so cold but had somehow saved her son. She approached the reception and explained that she wanted to pay off some pending bills for children who could not afford treatment. The hospital staff were surprised, but her calm, sincere tone made it clear she wasn't looking for attention. She simply wanted to help. Meanwhile, the CEO watched all these actions unfold through the assistant's updates. Each transaction, each receipt, came with a note explaining what she had done. For the first time in years, he felt emotions he hadn't felt in a long time. Admiration, surprise, and something he didn't like to admit. Hope. It was strange to realize that someone he barely knew could make a bigger impact with his wealth than anyone else he had met in years. Back at her small apartment, She placed the remaining groceries on the kitchen counter and looked at her son's school uniform. He needed shoes for the winter. She used a tiny part of the card to buy him new clothes, not extravagant, just warm and practical. She smiled softly, thinking about how excited he would be in the morning. That was all she needed. The rest of the wealth was not for her. The day continued, and she went about her work, cleaning offices, organizing spaces, and managing her home. None of her colleagues knew about what she had done. It wasn't her way to boast or seek recognition. She simply wanted to make life easier for others. The thought that someone like the CEO had trusted her enough to GI. For her, the card made her heart warm but did not change her. She was still the same woman who believed in hard work and kindness. In the CEO's office, he leaned back in his chair, reviewing the receipts again. The first 3 women had spent thousands, flaunted their purchases, and in some cases boasted about the experience on social media. The contrast between their actions and hers was striking. The model, the manager, and the influencer had all taken from him with little thought for others. Yet this woman, the quiet single mom, had taken only what she needed for the right reasons. It made him question the values he had surrounded himself with all these years. He decided to see her in person, not to scold or reward her, but to understand her. He asked his assistant to arrange a meeting. When she arrived, she looked nervous, thinking perhaps she had done something wrong. The CEO noticed the tired lines on her face, the gentle sadness in her eyes, and something about her calm demeanor struck him deeply. "You didn't buy anything for yourself," he said quietly, trying to hide the surprise in his voice. She nodded, unsure how to answer. "I only used it for what others needed. My son needed a few things, but that was it. I don't know why you gave it to me, but I wanted to do what felt right." The CEO studied her. Her honesty was rare and her humility unusual. He realized that this was exactly what he had hoped to find, though he hadn't expected to feel this strongly about it. She had passed a test that was never written on paper. They talked for a long time. She shared stories of her life, her struggles, and the little joys she found in helping others. She never complained about money or her hardships. She spoke with a calm dignity, the kind that comes from years of living simply and honestly. The CEO listened, captivated. He realized he had been surrounded by people who only cared about appearances, while she showed real strength and kindness. In the days that followed, the CEO made small changes. He started noticing people more carefully, looking beyond the surface. He began thinking about how he could use his resources to make a real difference. The single mom continued her life quietly, unaware that she had started to change someone else's life. Her son noticed too. He saw his mother smiling more, though quietly, and asking more about his day at school. He didn't know about the black card or the money that had passed through her hands. To him, she was simply the loving mother who always found a way to make life better for others. One evening, she received a small envelope at her door. Inside was a simple note: "Your honesty and kindness have not gone unnoticed. Meet me tomorrow." There was no name, only the company letterhead. She felt nervous but curious. She didn't know what to expect, but a small voice inside told her it was connected to the black card. The next day, she entered the CEO's office again. This time the atmosphere was different. The walls felt less intimidating, the air lighter. He welcomed her with a small smile. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "Not just for what you did with the card, but for showing me something I had forgotten. That kindness and honesty still exist." She felt her cheeks warm but remained humble. "I only did what I thought was right," she said. "I didn't do it for thanks or attention." The CEO nodded. "I know, and that's why it matters even more. I want to offer you a position to lead a community project within my company. It's a way to help more people and continue what you started." She was taken aback. A promotion, yes, but not for personal gain. It was a chance to do good on a larger scale. She thought about her son, her life, and the people she could help. After a moment of silence, she accepted, smiling softly. "I will do my best." The CEO felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. The lesson was clear. Money could reveal the heart of a person, but only those who lived with integrity could teach him about the true value of life. Meanwhile, the other 3 women learned of the outcome. Embarrassment mixed with regret, as they realized that they had used the opportunity for themselves and attention, not for good. The contrast between their choices and hers became a quiet lesson for everyone who heard the story. Back in her small apartment, she unpacked supplies and looked at her son's shoes, now clean and warm. She felt a quiet pride, not from wealth or recognition, but from the small impact she had made. The world outside continued as usual, people rushing through life, but for her, life had shifted just a little. She had found a way to balance care for herself and others, and in doing so, she had changed more than her own life. The CEO, watching the news and company updates, realized that genuine kindness could not be bought or taught. It was rare, but when found, it could inspire even the most hardened hearts. The single mom had done something no money could replicate, and for him, that lesson was priceless. The next few days brought quiet changes that no one could see from the outside. The single mom had started her new role in the company, though she still dressed simply and took the bus to work like always. She had never imagined sitting in meetings or leading a small team, but now she found herself at the head of a new project designed to help struggling families. Every morning she would arrive early, organizing papers and planning how to stretch every bit of support she could offer. She wasn't used to power or authority, but she carried something more valuable than that: heart. The CEO often watched from a distance. He didn't want to interfere or make her feel uncomfortable, but he couldn't help but notice the way people treated her differently. At first, some of the staff whispered behind her back. They didn't understand how someone who had once been a cleaner now sat in an office. A few even assumed she had received special treatment for reasons they couldn't explain. Yet as the days went on, their opinions began to change. She worked harder than anyone. She stayed late, listened to everyone, and never forgot to thank even the smallest helper. She didn't bark orders or show off her new title. She made sure people felt seen and valued, something that was rare in that building. Slowly, the gossip faded, replaced by quiet admiration. The CEO would often ask his assistant for updates. He didn't need to, but something about her progress gave him hope. For years, he had surrounded himself with people who cared only about numbers and status. Now, seeing her dedication reminded him that success could also mean kindness. Sometimes he would walk past her office and catch glimpses of her talking gently with employees or writing notes of encouragement. He found himself smiling, something he rarely did at work. One afternoon, she went to visit a local community center. The company's new project aimed to support single parents and children in need. She spent hours there, listening to their stories and taking notes on what they lacked: food, clothes, education, and even hope. On her way back, she stopped at a small cafe to gather her thoughts. She wasn't sure how much difference one project could make, but she believed small actions could ripple into something bigger. That evening, the CEO called her into his office. The sun was setting, casting a warm light across the room. She stood nervously at the door, unsure if she had done something wrong. He motioned for her to sit. "I've been reviewing your work," he began. His tone was calm, serious. "You've done more in 2 weeks than some teams have done in months." She looked surprised. "I'm just trying my best," she said softly. "There are so many families who need help." "I wish we could do more," he nodded slowly. "We will. You're teaching me that money doesn't create change. People do. You have that power." Her eyes widened slightly, touched by the words. She didn't know what to say. Compliments from someone like him felt heavy, not because she didn't deserve them, but because she still saw herself as an ordinary person. After a pause, she said, "I just want to use what I have to make things better. I don't want to waste what you gave me." The CEO leaned forward. "You haven't wasted a thing. In fact, you've reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago." There was a long silence between them. Outside, the city lights began to flicker on and the hum of traffic filled the background. It was strange, but neither of them felt the usual tension of a boss and employee. Instead, it was a conversation between two people, one who had everything and one who had learned to live with little yet give so much. After that meeting, their paths crossed more often. She continued her work with steady determination, and he began joining some of her visits to the community centers. At first, people didn't recognize him. He wore simple clothes, blending into the crowd. Watching her interact with families, he realized how different her world was from his. She didn't promise grand things or use fancy words. She listened, really listened, and people trusted her. It made him think about his own life, how many people truly listened to him, and how often he had cared to listen to others. One day, while leaving the center, he asked her quietly, How do you stay so calm?
Even when you see so much pain?
She smiled faintly. I've learned that pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes lighter when someone shares it. That's what I try to do. Share the weight, even a little. The CEO looked at her for a moment, realizing that her strength came not from power but from empathy. That was something no business school or fortune could teach. As weeks turned into months, the company's new project started gaining attention. News outlets began reporting on the CEO's community initiative. People praised the program, calling it innovative and heartfelt. But those who worked close? Lai knew where it had all started, from one woman's simple choice to use money for good instead of luxury. The CEO's life began to change as well. He no longer felt the need to attend every elite event or surround himself with people who praised him. Instead, he found meaning in quiet places, like the laughter of children at the community center or the gratitude of families receiving help. His assistant noticed the change too. The man who once lived by spreadsheets and deadlines now spoke more about values and impact. Still, he couldn't forget the test that had started it all. One evening, he decided to review the old records of the 4 women again. The first 3 had faded from his circle after the truth came out. Their interest in him had vanished once. They realized the black card wasn't a gift, but a test of character. But the single mom, she had never asked for anything, not even after passing the test. That thought stayed with him. She had changed his perspective without even trying. One afternoon, the CEO received a call from her. Her voice sounded calm, but worried. I wanted to let you know that one of the families we've been helping is struggling again. The father lost his job and they might lose their home. I'm trying to find a way to support them. Without hesitation, he said, We'll take care of it. She paused. Thank you. But I don't mean just with money. Maybe he can work. He doesn't want pity. He wants a chance. That single sentence hit him deeply. She wasn't asking for charity. She was asking for opportunity. It reminded him of something she had said long ago. Money should help people live, not make them forget how to. He agreed to meet the family personally. During the visit, he watched as she spoke to them with warmth and understanding. The man, embarrassed but grateful, offered to work for anything, even cleaning. The CEO smiled and told him there was always room for someone willing to try. That night, he reflected on how much he had changed not only his company, but his own way of seeing the world. By the time he got home, the city felt different. The lights no longer looked like symbols of wealth, but reminders of countless lives behind each window, each story waiting to be heard. He realized that success meant nothing if it didn't make life better for someone else. The next morning, he walked into the office and asked his assistant to prepare a proposal for expanding the project. Let's build a foundation, he said. Something lasting. The assistant smiled knowingly. Inspired by someone, I suppose. He gave a rare smile. Yes, by someone who reminded me that wealth means nothing without heart. Meanwhile, the single mom continued her quiet work, unaware of how many lives she had already touched. She didn't think of herself as special or heroic. To her, she was just doing what she had always believed in, helping where she could. But to those around her, she had become a symbol of something rare and real. A reminder that kindness, when given freely, could reach places money never could. That evening, as she walked home, the sky turned golden. Her son ran to greet her at the door, excited to show her a drawing he had made. It was of a tall building with people smiling in front of it. At the top, he had written in crooked letters, Mom's company helps people. She hugged him tightly, tears filling her eyes. In that simple drawing, she saw everything she had ever wanted: hope, love, and a better future. Far away, the CEO stood by his window again, looking out at the same city he once viewed with emptiness. But this time, it felt alive, full of purpose. Somewhere out there, a woman had reminded him that life wasn't about what you could buy, but what you could give. And that realization changed everything. Months passed, and the company's new foundation began to grow beyond what anyone expected. What had started as a small outreach program had now turned into a powerful network of support for families, students, and communities. The single mom had become the heart of it all. Her quiet leadership and genuine concern for people drew attention everywhere. Newspapers wrote about the foundation, but whenever reporters asked for interviews, she would politely decline. She didn't want fame. She wanted change. Every day, she would arrive at the office before everyone else, making sure things ran smoothly. Her desk was always filled with letters from people seeking help or sharing how their lives had improved. Some thanked her for food, others for jobs, and some simply for being listened to. She would read every single letter carefully, saving the ones that touched her most in a small wooden box she kept in her drawer. The CEO visited the foundation often. He wasn't the same man he had been months ago. His sharp business look had softened. He smiled more, spoke with patience, and listened more than he talked. His employees noticed the change. The same man, who once measured success by numbers, now measured it by lives improved. Whenever he walked through the foundation, he watched her interact with people, always humble, always sincere. It amazed him how someone with so little experience in power could handle everything with such grace. One morning, the CEO received a message from her. She wanted to discuss an idea. When she walked into his office, she carried a notebook filled with handwritten notes and sketches. "I've been thinking," she began. "We've helped a lot of people with donations and jobs, but some still feel lost. I think we should start something new, a place where people can learn new skills. Maybe a center that trains them for real work, something that lasts." The CEO listened carefully. Her words were simple, but her vision was powerful. "A learning center?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes. For single parents, teenagers, anyone who wants to build a better life. We could teach things like computer work, sewing, small business planning, anything that helps them stand on their own feet." He leaned back in his chair, impressed. "That's a big step," he said thoughtfully. "But I think it's time we take it." Her eyes lit up, though she stayed calm. "I know it's not easy," she said. "But we can start small. Even if it helps just a few people, it'll be worth it." The CEO smiled. "You remind me why this all began. Let's make it happen." Over the next few weeks, the entire office buzzed with excitement. Plans were drawn, budgets approved, and teams formed. She worked side by side with the CEO, visiting potential sites and talking to local communities. Everyone admired her dedication, though she never saw herself as special. She treated everyone equally, from senior managers to new interns. Her kindness had created a quiet sense of unity that the company had never seen before. Meanwhile, the CEO found himself thinking often about how much his life had changed. Before the black card experiment, he had been surrounded by luxury, but felt empty. Now he felt more alive than ever. Watching her work, he realized that true wealth wasn't in possessions, but in purpose. He had learned to see value in compassion, not status. One afternoon, as the two of them walked through a nearly finished building that would soon become the new training center, he said softly, "You've done something incredible. This place will help people for years." She smiled faintly. "We've done it together," she said. "You gave me a chance when you didn't have to." He shook his head. "No, you earned it. You showed me what trust really means." For a moment they stood in silence, listening to the echo of their footsteps on the empty floor. The walls were still bare, but to her it already felt alive with possibility. Weeks later, the center officially opened. Crowds gathered and local officials came to see what the buzz was about. The CEO was expected to give a grand speech, but he surprised everyone when he invited her to speak instead. She stepped up to the microphone, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "This center is not about charity," she said. "It's about opportunity. We all face hard times, but what matters is not how much we have. It's what we do with it. Sometimes a small act of kindness can change a life. I've learned that no matter where you come from, you can be the reason someone else stands tall." The crowd applauded, and for the first time she allowed herself to smile fully. It wasn't a smile of pride, but of gratitude, for every person who had believed in her, for every life they were about to change. The CEO watched from the side. feeling something stir in his chest. He realized he wasn't proud because of the success, he was proud because of her courage. After the ceremony, as people gathered to take pictures and shake hands, he quietly walked over to her. "You spoke beautifully," he said. "You've become the soul of this company." She looked down modestly. "I just spoke the truth," she replied. "I don't think I've done anything special." He smiled. "That's exactly what makes it special." From that day forward, the training center flourished. People from nearby towns came to learn, to grow, and to rebuild their lives. She spent hours every day at the center, helping students and guiding them. She became known as the person who listened, who understood, and who never turned anyone away. Even when tired, she never lost her warmth. But with success came challenges. The foundation grew so large that it needed more funding and staff. Some people tried to take advantage of its growing reputation. There were times when she felt overwhelmed, unsure how to handle the pressure. During one of those moments, she sat in her office late at night, staring at the lights outside, wondering if she was strong enough to keep going. The CEO found her there. "You're still here?" he asked gently. She smiled weakly. "I just wanted to make sure everything was ready for tomorrow. There's so much to do." He sat down across from her. "You've done more than enough. Don't forget to take care of yourself too." She nodded but didn't answer right away. After a pause, she said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm carrying too much. I'm afraid of disappointing people." He looked at her with understanding. "You won't. You've already done more than most people ever dream of. You gave this place a heart. The rest will follow." His words comforted her. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. She realized that leadership wasn't about being perfect. It was about staying true, even when things got hard. A few days later, the CEO called a meeting with the team. He announced that the company would launch a long-term plan to keep the foundation and training center growing for decades. "This isn't just a project anymore," he said. "It's a promise." He turned to her. "And you're the one who made it possible." The room filled with applause. She felt tears form in her eyes but quickly blinked them away. It was never about the praise for her. It was about the people whose lives had changed. Later that night, she visited the training center once more. The rooms were quiet, the lights dim, but she could hear faint echoes of laughter from the day. She walked through the hallways, remembering how it all started, with a black card and a simple choice. She touched the wall and smiled softly. Who would have thought that one act of trust could lead to so much good? Meanwhile, the CEO stood by his office window, just as he had months ago when he first began his experiment. The difference now was that he no longer felt alone. His world, once cold and calculated, was now full of purpose. He had learned that generosity could build more than empires. It could build hearts. And as the night grew quiet, both of them in their own ways felt the same peaceful truth. Sometimes, the greatest tests in life aren't about what we achieve, but how much kindness we're willing to give without expecting anything in return. The following year brought new challenges and even bigger dreams. The foundation and training center had become a source of inspiration for thousands. People from all over the country wrote letters to the CEO and the single mom, telling them how the program had changed their lives. Some had started small businesses, others had gone back to school, and many had simply found hope again. But for both of them, the greatest joy came from seeing people believe in themselves. The CEO had grown into a man everyone respected, not just for his wealth, but for his humility. The single mom had become a quiet legend in the company, someone whose story was told to new employees as a reminder of what compassion could achieve. Yet, despite all the success, she still lived simply. She kept her same old apartment, drove her modest car, and never asked for anything in return. Her happiness came from the people she helped. One morning, the CEO called her into his office. His tone was calm, but there was something thoughtful in his eyes. "It's been a year since the black card experiment," he said. "Do you remember that day?" She laughed softly. "How could I forget? I was terrified I'd spend it wrong." He smiled. "You spent it perfectly. You didn't just pass a test, you changed everything. That card wasn't just a piece of plastic, it was the start of something that's now changing lives everywhere. She looked down modestly. I just followed my heart. That's what made all the difference, he said. And now I want to do something more, something permanent. I've decided to start a scholarship program in your name. It'll help single parents who want to study or learn new skills. Her eyes widened in disbelief. In my name? You don't have to. I want to, he said firmly. You showed me what real leadership is. It's not about control, it's about care. You've given this company a new soul. It's only right that we honor you in a way that lasts. Tears filled her eyes, but she tried to hide them. I don't know what to say, she whispered. He smiled. Just keep being you. That's enough. News of the scholarship spread quickly, and soon, hundreds of applicants sent their stories. The foundation received more letters than ever before. Each one told a story of struggle, hope, and perseverance. She spent hours reading them, often staying late into the night, trying to choose who needed it most. Every letter reminded her of where she had come from, the long nights, the fear, the moments when she almost gave up. Now, she had the chance to help others climb out of the same darkness. But even with the joy, life had its challenges. The foundation was expanding, and she found herself working more hours than ever. There were times she barely slept, worrying about budgets, projects, and people. One evening while sitting alone in her office, the CEO stopped by again. "You're still working?" he asked gently. She looked up from her papers. "There's just so much to do. I can't rest yet." He shook his head with a kind smile. "You have to take care of yourself too. The work will never stop. But if you burn out, you won't be able to keep helping others." She sighed softly. "I just don't want to fail anyone." He sat across from her. "You haven't failed anyone. You've built something that will outlive all of us. That's the beauty of it." His words made her pause. She realized he was right. Sometimes she forgot how far they'd come. She looked around the office filled with photos of families, volunteers, and graduates of the training center. Each face was proof that kindness could multiply. Weeks later, the CEO invited her to attend an important company event. It wasn't unusual, but she noticed something different that evening. When she arrived, the entire hall was decorated with banners showing pictures of people the foundation had helped. The air buzzed with energy. She assumed it was another fundraiser until the CEO walked onto the stage. He began his speech by sharing how the company had transformed. "A year ago," he said, "I tested something not for profit, but for principle. I wanted to see what people would do when given trust instead of rules. One woman turned that trust into something powerful. She reminded us that the greatest investment we can make is in people." The audience listened closely as he continued. "Today our foundation stands as a living example of her kindness and strength, so tonight we celebrate her journey." He turned toward her and extended his hand, inviting her to the stage. The audience clapped, their applause echoing through the hall. She felt her heart race as she walked up, unsure what to expect. The CEO handed her a small box. Inside was a golden key. "This," he said, "is the key to the new community center we're opening next month. It'll be named after you. It will serve as a home for education, hope, and opportunity." The crowd erupted in cheers. She stood there speechless, her eyes glistening. For a long moment she couldn't find the words. Then she looked out at the crowd and said softly, "This doesn't belong to me, it belongs to everyone who believed in something better. We built this together." The applause grew louder. People stood up clapping and cheering. The CEO smiled proudly, knowing that she had once again turned a simple gesture into something deeply meaningful. In the days that followed, the story of the community center spread everywhere. It became a symbol of faith and unity. People visited from far and wide, inspired by her story and what the company had accomplished. The center offered free classes, counseling, and workshops. It gave people a second chance at life. And whenever someone asked her how it all started, she would smile and say, "It began with trust." Months later, one quiet evening, she visited the very store where the black card experiment had first taken place. She stood outside, looking through the window. It felt like a lifetime ago. Back then, she had been nervous, uncertain, wondering if she'd made the right choice. Now she realized that single decision had changed everything, not just for her but for thousands of others. The CEO joined her a few moments later. "You still remember this place?" he asked with a smile. "How could I forget?" she replied. "This is where it all started." He nodded thoughtfully. "Funny how life works, isn't it? One small moment, one simple act, and it ripples out forever." She smiled gently. "I think it was meant to happen. You wanted to test people, but maybe life was testing both of us." He chuckled softly. "Maybe it was. And I think we both passed." They stood there in silence for a while, watching people walk by. The world around them had changed, but in that moment, everything felt peaceful. Neither of them needed to say much. Their journey had already said it all. As the night grew colder, the CEO turned to her. "You know, I used to think success was about numbers, about how much I could gain, but now I realize it's about how much we give. You taught me that." She looked at him with a kind smile. "And you taught me to believe in second chances." They both laughed softly. The city lights shimmered around them, reflecting the quiet beauty of how far they'd come. Years later, the foundation and training center would continue to thrive, helping more people than anyone could count. Her story would become part of the company's history, a story not about wealth or power, but about kindness, trust, and the strength of the human spirit. And though she never sought recognition, her name became a symbol of hope. People who faced hard times would remember her and say, "If she could do it, maybe I can too." The CEO, now older and wiser, often told new employees the same thing. Never underestimate the power of one good choice. It can change everything. And somewhere in his office, framed on the wall, was the original black card, the one that started it all. Beneath it was a simple plaque with words that captured the heart of their journey. "Trust builds more than wealth. It builds humanity." That was the true legacy there.